Nurse Claire freezes as she sees the face of the critically injured man in the ICU. It's Alex, her first and only love. The one who vanished without a word, leaving her standing at the altar. The man she never thought she'd see again, yet here he is, broken and unconscious.
Please rate the story on a scale of 1 to 10. Let us know, what do you think? Your support means the world, and we can't wait to bring you more incredible stories like this.
The hospital was unusually quiet for a Friday night. Rain tapped gently against the windows, and fluorescent lights hummed in the background. Nurse Claire Maddox adjusted her scrubs, glancing at the clock. Just after midnight. She had worked plenty of night shifts before, but something about this one made her uneasy. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe it was just her bones telling her trouble was coming. Then the double doors burst open. Male, early 30s, massive head trauma, internal bleeding, possible spinal injury. The EMT barked as the gurney flew through the hallway. Blood soaked the sheets. Tubes, wires, chaos. Claire rushed forward with her team, already pulling on gloves. Vitals? BP is crashing. We need to stabilize now. She grabbed the patient's chart without looking at his face. Protocol first. Always protocol. But then she looked, and the world just stopped. She froze. It wasn't possible. No, it couldn't be. But it was. That face, bruised, bloodied, barely breathing, was burned into her memory. The strong jawline. The scar just below his right eyebrow. The dimple that barely peeked through the swelling. It was him. Alex Dalton. The man who left her 10 years ago without a word. The man she was supposed to marry. The man who vanished the morning of their wedding. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her fingers trembled. She forced herself to breathe. The past rushed back in waves. Flowers thrown on the church floor, unanswered calls, months of silence that turned into years. Claire? Another nurse said, confused. You okay? She blinked, snapping out of it. Yes, I'm fine. Keep pressure here. She stepped in, taking control of the situation. Professionally. Calmly. On the outside. On the inside she was screaming. What was he doing here? Why now? Where had he been all this time? They wheeled him into surgery prep. His condition was critical. The surgeon on call gave her a grim look. We'll try our best. Hours passed. Claire sat alone in the break room, head in her hands, her heart pounding in her ears. The rain hadn't stopped. Neither had the questions. When the surgeon finally returned, he gave her a tired nod. He made it through. Barely. He's stable for now. But unconscious. Relief washed over her. And then guilt. Why should she care? But she did. Of course she did. 10 years meant nothing when the past walked back into your ear, half dead and silent. She told herself it didn't matter. That he didn't matter. But she knew that was a lie. Later she walked into his room alone. Machines beeped softly around him. He looked peaceful. Or maybe just empty. Claire stood at the edge of his bed, arms crossed, fists clenched. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. You don't get to come back like this. Not like this. Silence. Then, his fingers moved. Just a twitch. But enough to make her heart stop again. He was waking up. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines and the rhythm of Alex's breathing. Claire stood near the window, arms folded tightly, trying to will herself into calm. The rain had stopped. But inside her, the storm had only just begun. A sudden rasp of breath behind her made her turn. His eyes were open. Blinking slowly, confused, disoriented, but open. Claire's heart leapt into her throat. He was awake. She stepped closer, cautiously, her shoes nearly silent against the tile. He turned his head toward her, groaning softly from the effort. Where am I? He whispered, his voice hoarse, dry but unmistakably his. Claire's fingers curled into her palms. You're in Mercy, General, she said gently, forcing a steady tone. You were in a car accident. They brought you here 3 nights ago. He blinked again, trying to process. You've been here the whole time? She gave a small nod. Then something shifted. His gaze met hers directly. But it wasn't the gaze she remembered. It wasn't him, not really. There was no flicker of recognition. Nothing. His brow furrowed. Do I know you? The question hit like a punch to the gut. Claire took a step back. I'm Claire. I've been your nurse since they brought you in. He studied her face as if searching for a clue, something to anchor him. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "Everything's foggy. I remember some things but not everything. Last few years are a blur." His voice, God, that voice. Still the same. Still low and soft, the kind that used to whisper promises at midnight and say her name like a secret. But now it felt like hearing a ghost speak. Claire swallowed hard. "You don't remember anything? Not even who you were with before the accident?" Alex shook his head, wincing from the motion. "Just flashes. A motel room. A man yelling. Then headlights. That's it." She stared at him. A motel room? A man? Her chest tightened. Something wasn't right. A decade of unanswered questions collided with the fear blooming in her gut. She'd spent 10 years trying to forget him, trying to hate him. But now, seeing him broken, lost, confused, something old and fragile cracked open again. Claire turned to leave. She needed air. Distance. "Wait," Alex said suddenly, his voice catching. She stopped at the door. "Please, don't go," he said. "I don't know why, but I feel like I trust you. Like I'm safe when you're here." The words stopped her cold. Her hand rested on the doorknob, fingers trembling. This wasn't fair. It wasn't fair for him to say things like that. Not when he didn't remember. Not when she couldn't forget. She didn't turn around. Didn't speak. But she didn't leave either. And behind her, Alex whispered again, "Please, stay." The hospital ward was quiet again, bathed in the dim glow of overnight lights. Claire sat near the window, her chart untouched in her lap. She wasn't on shift anymore, but she hadn't left. Something about Alex's presence pulled at her, like a tug from a thread she thought had unraveled years ago. Just past 2 in the morning, his breathing changed. Shallow. Uneven. Then, "Claire." Her name slipped from his mouth like a sigh, soft and raw. Not clinical. Not curious. But intimate. Claire froze. He shifted restlessly in the bed, eyes closed, caught in a dream, or a memory. "Don't go," he murmured. "I'm sorry. Please, stay." Her name again. Barely audible, but soaked in something she hadn't heard from him in a decade. Affection. Regret. Claire stood abruptly, her pulse pounding in her ears. He couldn't remember her, but his subconscious had apparently refused to forget. Or he was lying. And if he was lying, why? She stepped back from the bed and moved to the small plastic bag of his personal effects, tucked into a drawer at the nurse's station. She hesitated only a second before pulling it open. Wallet. Keys. A cracked phone. And one folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges from time. She unfolded it with trembling fingers. It was a photo. Of them. 10 years younger, arms around each other, caught mid-laugh in the middle of a sunflower field. Her favorite place. His idea. A rare day of sunshine that still lived in her bones. Claire sat down hard in the chair. Why would he still have this? Why carry that memory with him across all these years into whatever chaos he'd been living in? She stared at the faces in the picture. Her smile then had been so open. So hopeful. She remembered the moment it was taken, right before he told her he loved her for the first time. And yet, days later he vanished. No call. No note. Just silence. Claire stood, photo still in hand, her breath sharp. She returned to the room and looked at him lying there, brow furrowed in some private war behind his eyelids. What if he was telling the truth? What if someone had taken those years from him? Or, what if he was playing her again? She sat beside the bed, watching him stir in his sleep. Her voice was steady, but her throat burned. "Why, Alex?" she whispered. "Why didn't you come back?" But he didn't answer. Couldn't. The machines kept beeping in their steady rhythm, but inside Claire, everything felt chaotic again. When the morning light crept through the blinds, she was still there. Watching. Waiting. And when his eyes fluttered open again, she didn't hesitate. This time she asked out loud. "Why didn't you come back?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Claire's voice, though quiet, had sliced through the fog between them. "Why didn't you come back?" Alex stared at her, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion but holding something else now, guilt. Fear. A silent war. For a long moment he said nothing. Just looked at her the way a man looks at something he'd lost long ago and never thought he'd see again. Then, with a weak breath, he whispered, "Because I was told not to." Claire's heart thudded. "What?" He swallowed. "The day we were supposed to get married." I got a call. Silence fell between them like a wall. They knew everything. Where we were. The time of the wedding. What you'd be wearing. They said if I didn't disappear, something would happen to you. Claire took a step back, her face paling. Who said that? He looked away. Who, Alex? I don't know. They used a blocked number. But they knew too much. They even knew the name of your dog. The scar on your shoulder. I couldn't take the chance. Claire's breath hitched. So instead, you broke my heart and vanished. I thought it would keep you safe. She couldn't process it. The pain of the past 10 years had calcified inside her, and now this, an explanation no one had given, a danger she'd never known existed. Why didn't you tell me? Or the police? They said they were watching. That if I even tried to contact you. His voice cracked. Claire, I believed them. Her head was spinning. It didn't make sense. Who would go to such lengths to keep them apart? Then a flicker. A memory. A conversation she'd buried. Her father. Sitting at the dining table with clenched fists and eyes like steel. Saying things no father should. She's not marrying him. Not while I'm alive. At the time she'd dismissed it as anger. As pride. As the bruised ego of a man losing control. But now. She sat down slowly, her mind working faster than her heart could follow. My father, she said aloud, barely hearing herself. He hated you. Alex nodded, eyes full of something bitter and knowing. I always wondered, he said softly. It sounded like someone with power. Someone who could make threats real. Claire's jaw clenched. She wanted to deny it. But the pieces, they started to click. Her father had contacts. He'd worked in law enforcement, then private security. He knew people. People who didn't play fair. And she remembered how quickly he'd offered to pay for her to move on. How fast he'd helped erase Alex from every part of her life. No explanation. No sympathy. Just silence and control. I can't believe it, she whispered. I never stopped loving you, Claire, Alex said. But I thought I was protecting you. She didn't answer. Not yet. Because suddenly she didn't know who she was angrier at. The man who disappeared. Or the one who made him do it. Claire didn't sleep that night. Her shift had ended, but instead of going home she drove straight to her childhood house. Something inside her, it felt like fire, refused to let her rest until she knew the truth. She found the old cedar chest in the attic, where her father used to hide everything he didn't want touched. Her hands trembled as she forced it open. Not war medals. Not old bills. Letters. Dozens of them. Faded. Folded. Torn at the edges. All addressed to her, from Alex Dalton. The same handwriting she'd memorized in college. Her breath caught as she opened the first one. Claire, please. I don't know if you'll ever read this. I was told to leave and I'm scared. Not for me, for you. I can't tell you who called, but they knew things about your life. I had no choice. I just hope you're safe. Always. Alex. She opened another. I've tried to reach you every way I can. Nothing gets through. I don't know who's stopping me or why, but someone doesn't want us together. Please don't think I vanished because I didn't love you. I never stopped. Claire covered her mouth, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. He hadn't ghosted her. He hadn't run away because he was a coward. He was threatened. And someone close, had silenced his truth. Her eyes burned with tears. Her father had known. He'd intercepted every letter. Hidden every plea. Killed a love with silence. She found another letter, unopened, its seal broken and poorly glued shut. Her name was underlined twice. I remember the way you looked that morning. I wanted to hold you one more time. But if I did, they promised they'd ruin you. I'm sorry, Claire. If I ever come back, it will be when I know you're safe. She broke. Right there on the dusty attic floor, she cried the cry of someone who'd carried a false grief for 10 long years. She hadn't been abandoned. She'd been stolen from. When she finally returned to the hospital, her hands were full of those letters, her eyes bloodshot. Alex looked up from the bed, pale and recovering. His gaze softened when he saw her. I found them, she said, voice hoarse. All of them. He blinked. You read them? She nodded. She took a shaky breath. It was my father. He destroyed your letters. He made sure I thought you left. Alex closed his eyes, pain crawling across his face. Then he said quietly, Claire? I only came back because I found out he died. Her heart twisted. And just like that, the past wasn't buried anymore, it was back, breathing between them. The hospital garden was quiet that afternoon, too quiet. Even the wind held its breath. Claire walked slowly beside Alex's wheelchair, her eyes drifting from the tulips to the man who once held her whole future in his hands. He looked older now, his jaw sharper, his temples streaked with gray. But the way he tilted his head when he listened, the way his fingers fidgeted when he was nervous, none of that had changed. They sat on a wooden bench, shaded by a maple tree. Silence hung between them. Not cold, not awkward. Heavy. "I used to imagine this," Claire said finally, her voice almost a whisper. "That maybe I'd see you again. In a coffee shop. At the airport. Somewhere random. But never like this." Alex looked at her, quiet. "I imagined it too. Except in mine, you didn't look at me like I was a ghost." Claire flinched. "You were. For 10 years. He nodded slowly, guilt etched into every line of his face. "I read your letters again this morning," she said. "All of them. Some were torn. Some smelled like old paint and dust. But they were yours." Alex's voice was quiet. "I thought of you every day." She looked away. "Don't say that if it's not true." "It is." The moment stretched between them like a wire pulled tight. Claire folded her arms. "Are you married?" Alex turned to her, expression unreadable. "No. Never could." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I tried once," he admitted. "But I always compared her to you. It wasn't fair to her. Or to me. So, I didn't." Claire stared at him, a storm behind her eyes. "I hated you," she said quietly. "For leaving. For not writing. For not showing up. I convinced myself you were a coward. A liar. Someone who took the easy way out." "I know," he whispered. "But now I don't know what to believe. I feel like I've been mourning a lie." Alex leaned forward slightly, wincing from the pain in his ribs. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to believe me. But I never stopped loving you, Claire. That's the only truth I've got left." Tears welled in her eyes. She blinked them away with practiced precision. "This isn't a movie, Alex. We don't just fall back in love because we shared something once." "I know. It's not that easy." "I'm not asking for easy." She looked down at his hand resting on his lap. For a moment she didn't think, she just reached out and held it. Warm. Familiar. Her voice broke slightly. "Are you going to leave again?" He turned to her, their hands still entwined. And for a second, all the weight of the past seemed to balance on his answer. The hospital room was quiet, save for the distant hum of machines and the soft sound of Claire's breathing. Alex sat on the edge of the bed, his clothes neatly folded beside him, ready for discharge. His movements were slow, deliberate. He was better now, or at least it seemed that way on the outside. But Claire could feel the air between them heavy with unspoken words, with the weight of everything that had happened. She stood by the door, watching him, unsure whether to speak, unsure if there was anything left to say. "I'm leaving," Alex said finally, his voice low. "I know," she whispered. For a moment, neither of them moved. Claire's chest tightened. This moment felt so final, so utterly irreparable. She had been waiting for this, expecting it, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure she was ready. Alex stood, gathering his strength, and as he did, he reached into the pocket of his jacket. His fingers fumbled for a moment before he pulled out a small, worn box. He opened it slowly, revealing an old, simple gold ring. Claire's heart skipped a beat. "This," Alex began, his voice catching. "I carried this with me. All these years. It was supposed to be for you. I never took it off. But now." He paused, glancing at her, the sorrow in his eyes evident. "Now it's not mine to give," he finished softly. Claire felt her breath catch in her throat. Her fingers twitched, wanting to reach out, wanting to take it, to finally make sense of the years that had slipped away. But something inside her hesitated. You never told me what happened that day," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "You never told me you were protecting me." Alex's gaze softened. "I couldn't risk losing you." "And now?" she asked, her heart pounding in her chest. He closed his eyes for a moment as if gathering courage. When he looked at her again, his eyes were full of an intensity she hadn't seen in years. "I'm here," he said, his voice steady. "And I won't leave again. Not without you." Claire's breath hitched. She walked towards him, feeling the space between them stretch, and yet, in that moment, it felt as though everything was coming back into place. She took the ring from his hand, holding it gently in hers. The weight of it felt like the weight of the past 10 years, heavy, painful, but undeniable. She stared at it for a moment and then she looked up at him, meeting his eyes. "This time," she whispered, "I'm not letting you go." Her voice broke, the finality of her words sinking in. It was a promise. One she had never expected to make. But she meant it with every part of her being.